This is a reading of Foresight by quirk. Summary. Izuku's quirk is simple. It tells him exactly what he needs to do. It tells him to grab an umbrella, and that afternoon it rains unexpectedly. It tells him to bring cash, and it turns out the card reader is out of order. His quirk tells him to rob a bank. Well, why not? Does the name All for One mean anything to Izuku? Nope. Will it tear down the empire of a powerful villain who has been terrorizing Japan for over a century anyway? Sure. The rating is for general audience. No archive warnings apply. Category for Gen. Fandom for Boku no Hero Academia or My Hero Academia. Relationship between Midoriya Izuku and Todoroki Shoto as friends. Characters: Midoriya Izuku, Midoriya Inko, Todoroki Shoto, Takami Keigo or Hawks, Todoroki Fuyumi, Dabi or Todoroki Tauya, Aizawa Shota or Eraserhead, Sasaki Mirai or Sir Night Eye. Additional text: Alternate universe, canon divergence. Midoriya Izuku does not go to UA High School. No one else knows what Izuku's motivations are. Izuku does not know what Izuku's motivations are. Gratuitous amounts of foreshadowing. Gen work, Vigilante Midoriya Izuku, and Podfic available. Language in English. Alright. Chapter 1. Alright, Izuku, are you ready to go? Mama asks, crouching so she's level with Izuku. Lunch? Backpack? Uniform? There is a soft nudging at his hands, a reminder that he needs to get something. I have those, but there's... Izuku knows there is something else. What? The feeling of a nudge changes to a soft pull at his wrist, like someone gently tugging at him. This way. Alright then, Mama says, taking his hand and following him to the closet. Izuku opens the door and reaches onto a shelf above his head. His hand finds a box and he pulls it down to see it. Band-aids? The feeling of a soft pull shifts to settle down, a quiet reassurance of a job well done. Oh, band-aids, Mama says with an easy smile. What a good idea, Izuku. A good start to his first day of preschool. Another kid scrapes his knee that day. Before he can begin to cry, Izuku is already there with his band-aid. His teachers praise him for being so helpful, and he gets an extra star on the chart. That was all it is for a while. A few little intuitions. His hand twitches towards the umbrella as he's walking out of the door, and it rains unexpectedly. His hands twitch around problem 4 on his homework, and he finds he had made a mistake. He brings an extra pencil and gives it to a peer just when a test is starting. Simple things. He finds he has a certain affinity for plants. His hands always guide him to do the right thing. Just the right amount of water. Just the right amount of sunlight. When he's 5, he notices a pair of strange freckles on the back of his wrist. As he watches, they shift slightly. Dark curving lines begin to grow out of them, like drawings of vines which flow across his skin. They stretch out towards his fingers and wrap around his knuckles. They're almost black, with the slightest sheen of green flickering across them. Izuku watches them for a while, and they guide him to one of his mom's ferns. He nudges the fronds until the vines around his hands seem content. They shift away again, settling into a pair of freckles on the back of his wrist. Izuku thinks it might grow out better this way. Izuku can never quite explain the way that the lines speak to him. It's nothing like words, and it's not quite just the shapes that the vines play out along his hands. There is something deeper underneath, across his whole chest, like his entire body is being pulled towards whatever it is he needs to do. His mother doesn't understand, but is excited with him and takes him to the quirk doctor. They name it Green Grower and write down that Izuku can make plants grow well. Izuku tries to explain that it's more than just that, but they tell him that it's a lovely quirk and that's all he needs. He gives up after a little while. His quirk pulls at his hands just in time to save the doctor's clipboard from falling off the desk. Izuku doesn't mention it. When he and his mom get home, they bake a cake together to celebrate how big Izuku has gotten. Izuku thinks that maybe it's alright. Izuku thinks about being a hero, but there is no familiar tug at his hands. He hugs his mom and decides to trust his quirk. It starts with simple suggestions. One day after school, it guides him to an unfamiliar classroom. He opens the door to find the fashion club. Izuku joins. Izuku doesn't need to think much. He drifts through life with an absent smile and always has just the right thing for the job. He's content, helping other people and being helped by his quirk. He finds that he doesn't need much more than that. The bullying starts after they learn about his quirk. They call him names. Wallflower, useless. But it doesn't last long. The first time was one day when Izuku was walking down the hallway at school. His hands tuck him to the left instead of the right, and he listens. He stumbles onto the janitor mopping the floor, and he pauses in confusion. Just a moment after he rounds the corner, some other middle schoolers, led by their ringleader Kachan himself, come running after him. He simply steps to the side, and the kids slip on the water covering the floor. They go sliding across the hallway, and Izuku shrugs at the janitor before slipping away in the other direction. The kids that Kachan led stop bothering Izuku, their pride a little too damaged to try and humiliate him again. He brings extra snack to the fashion club and is invited to weekly game nights. He learns how to sew, how to change apparent body shape with the cut of his pants, and how to change his face with makeup. He follows the example of the other club members and dyes his hair new colors and tries new styles often. Kacha never really changed, but suddenly there are other people in the class who are willing to stand up to him. Izuku trusts his quirk. When he's 11 years old, his quirk asks him to rob a bank. Well, it doesn't exactly ask him. All his quirk can do is tell him to do something or go somewhere. So his quirk really just pushes him to buy a sky mask, a hammer, a gun that looks real aside from the bright orange nozzle, and some black paint. Well, Izuku got the idea. The question was whether he should trust what his quirk was telling him to do. He decided to go with it. At the very least, it seems interesting. He paints the nozzle of the fake gun with the black paint. It actually almost looks real. Izuku wears black clothes, a black backpack, and black gloves. On the day which his quirk instructs, he leaves home and walks to a bank. He hesitates for a few moments outside, then follows the feeling in his gut and enters. He takes a strange sort of winding way through the lobby, and Izuku realizes that he is avoiding the cameras. A minute after he enters, an explosion goes off from the back room of the bank. Izuku ducks into one of the cubicles and pulls on the mask. Alarm went off from all around them, and Izuku peeks around the edge of the cubicle. "Put your head down!" shouts the leader. If you're smart enough, you might just get out of this in one piece. Yeah, what he said, shouts another. Something like a dozen villains, wearing almost the same thing as Izuku, stream into the lobby from the back room, bags of valuables strapped to their backs. Izuku stares at them. It was almost something out of a movie. You! The leader shouted, pointing at where Izuku is half hidden. Get out of here! We have gotta get out of here quick! Stop your lollygagging. That was a word that this man has decided to use. Izuku stands up and slips into their pack, holding his gun like it's real. He is the shortest person in the group, but not by much. He fits in almost perfectly. We are stealing your stuff! A woman next to Izuku shouts. Yeah! Izuku shouts in solidarity. They walk right out of the front door and into the van that pulls up to the curb. Izuku thinks that this might have been more than what he bargained for. The back of the van is empty, save for the benches bolted on both sides. Izuku follows the group and slips into one of the seats. There are no seat belts, so Izuku just holds on to the metal handle bolted onto the wall beside him. The van screeches away from the curb, taking Izuku with it. It keeps moving with a breakneck speed through the streets, taking a sharp turn every few seconds. The man next to Izuku sighed theatrically. That was something, wasn't it? Honestly, I was expecting some heroes or something. How disappointing. He says, slouching into his seat. He pulls a pack of cigarettes and lit one with a flick of his finger. Some kind of firework. He puts the cigarettes in his mouth and offers the box to Izuku. Izuku takes one to be polite, but though he doesn't have a lighter. Also, he is under the impression that 11 years old is too young to smoke cigarettes, but the man soon becomes distracted with talking to the person with horns on the other side of him. Wait a second! The leader from earlier shouts from the front. He is standing between the driver and passenger seat, hanging onto a handle in the middle of the ceiling. He's counting everyone in the van. Didn't we have 11 people? Izuku's heart lurches in his chest. No, the man beside Izuku responds. We got 12. I mean, before the bank. The leader corrects. I'm sure we had 11. No, everyone is occupied with numbering the people in the van, getting in each other's way, and moving so much that no one can get a good count. The fact that the van is still swaying and turning doesn't help. Did you count yourself? Someone calls. Of course, the leader says. Did you count the driver? Aha, I forgot the driver. The leader growls, wheeling towards the front of the car. The attention of the van moves to the six-armed man, concentrating intently on the road. He is also wearing a sky mask. Izuku sees a giant tree branch barreling towards the van before the six-armed man takes a sudden right turn to dodge it. What's the next turn, boss? He asks. There's more important things to worry about, the leader shouts. Actually, no there aren't. You are the missing person. Boss? One bank robber speaks up. If you miss the driver, doesn't that mean we now have 13 people? The leader stares at her. Oh no, he whispers. 2 imposters. The van descends into chaos. The group chat, shouts the man beside Izuku. Everyone write what they look like in the group chat, then we can find these imposters. Everyone takes out their phones. Izuku takes out his too, blindly hoping that this was plan of his quirk's plan. Izuku suddenly feels a very strong urge to take the phone of the man next to him. The car lifts off the ground. It doesn't flip, rather, it just starts to go upward. Izuku holds onto the handle above him tightly and stares past the other passengers and through the windshield. Mount Lady stares back at him. Her face is larger than the entire windshield. Someone shoots a blast of light at her eyes. She shouts and flinches back, but thankfully doesn't drop the fan. She sets it down roughly on the top of a building. Izuku manages to grab the phone of the man next to him during the chaos. Someone throws open the back doors of the van. Izuku stands and grabs one of the duffel bags from the floor, then follows as everyone jumps out. They scatter. Izuku's quirk sending him to the left and he starts to run. Behind him, he hears the sound of Kamui Woods starting to gather up the bank robbers. Izuku runs to the edge of the building and sees that the next one was only a few feet lower and maybe 7 feet away from the one he's on. He jumps, landing mostly on his feet and continuing onward. His quirk sends him to one of the rooftop doorways. He tries it and finds it locked. He panics for a second before remembering that he has a hammer. With a fake sense of guilt, he smashes the door handle. Izuku sends one last glance at the fighting behind him. Kamui Woods is trying to pin down the villains while Mount Lady is rubbing her eyes and holding the driver in one hand. Izuku rushes through the door, leaving the fight behind him. Then he shakes off his mask as he walks down the stairs. He stuffs the bag he had grabbed into his backpack and tries to make his face as calm as he can. He gets to the lobby. People are standing around, glancing idly out of the front window at the sound of the fight. His quirk isn't saying anything, so Izuku decides to stay put. He finds a couch and pretends to browse his phone for a while. Eventually, the sounds of fighting die down and people start leaving. Izuku follows. So it turns out his quirk did have a plan after all. Izuku walks home. Once he's back in the apartment, he calls out for his mom. No response, so she isn't home. At work then, he trudges to his room and slumps into his chair. After a few minutes of sitting there, he finally sits back up and grabs his backpack, taking out the hammer, bag, and fake gun. He then opens the duffel bag which he grabbed from the pile in the van and pulls open the zipper. His brain short-circuits. Inside is more money than he has ever seen in one place. Maybe even more than Mom has in her bank account. Not knowing what else to do, he closes the bag tightly, then shoves it under his bed. After some prodding from his quirk, he removes it and instead shoves it into a cubby in his closet, in plain view of anyone who entered his room. Izuku shifts between his feet and bites his lip, fighting the urge to hide the bag somewhere sneakier and listening to his quirk. Eventually, the quirk's history of success wins, and he returns to his desk, defeated. Izuku pulls out the phone he had taken. It's an older model, but not that old. He presses the home button experimentally, and it opens to a lock screen. He stares at it for a long second, then feels a twitch of his fingers. He reaches out and follows the delicate twisting and curling of the lines around his hand. It's half like he is following the movement with his eyes, half just the feeling of his quirk shifting through his hands. He types in the phone's code, digit by digit. The phone unlocks. Izuku pokes around the apps for a while. There isn't much on it, but the default apps. Not even any personal text. Just some group chats about setting up the robbery. Then Izuku realizes what it is. It's a crime phone. The man must have just used it as a burner for whatever shady stuff he was mixed in with. Why had Izuku grab it though? Izuku feels a nudge from his quirk. He needs to get something. It's fuzzy, something to do with the phone. Izuku pokes around and finds himself gravitating towards the App Store. Then, his quirk nudges him towards the Twitter icon. Izuku stops to stare at the phone. Just to be contrary, now his quirk was just telling him to make social media. His quirk sulkily pulls at Izuku's gut, and he gives up and downloads Twitter on the criminal's phone. He gets to the account setup page, then stops as he is about to set up an account. His quirk wouldn't ask him to make it unless there was a good reason. If the account was supposed to be in Izuku's name, then it would just have him make the account on Izuku's phone. What for a handle though? Izuku ponders it for a bit, then decides on Foresight 2020, because why not? He makes the account using the phone number of the phone he stole, then opens the homepage to browse through trending topics. Then his quirk sends him a nudge towards a certain account. Why? Izuku asks out loud. His quirk continues to nudge. Oh well, time to figure out how to get a friend request from the pro hero Hawks. Generally, his quirk doesn't ask much of him. It's just helpful, keeping him from most inconveniences or embarrassment. Most things it asks of him made sense within a day or two at most, and rarely were they totally crazy. But there are exceptions, like the bank and like today. Izuku stands in front of the sketchiest building he has ever seen and internally curses his quirk. It's been a few months since the incident with the bank. He is now 12 years old. Nothing much had happened after that. He just occasionally read through the crime group chat and wondered what exactly the point had been. He is wearing heavy makeup, which make him look older than he was, and has nearly $1 million in his pocket. This is incredibly sketchy. Izuku walks in anyway. What you want? Asks an older woman reading a magazine, her feet propped casually on the counter. Dunno, Izuku says, completely honestly. What can you give me? There was a certain act he had learned from having his quirk. It involved showing up to places and letting people come to their own conclusions about what it is that he wanted. These days, it went quite smoothly. The woman looks up at him from over her magazine, and then eyes him from his hair to his toes. What are you? 14? Izuku stares at her, not saying a thing. I think maybe we could pull off 17. But that ain't gonna let you buy drinks or nothing, you hear? Izuku stares, then decides that whatever she's talking about is probably alright. Let's do it, Izuku says. She raises her eyebrows and takes her feet off the counter. Just a card, or do you want something that will stand up to a bit more looking into? She asks, typing something on her computer. Izuku considers the amount of money in his pocket. How about the works? Izuku asks. An hour later, Izuku walks out with an incredibly convincing fake ID for one 17-year-old Akatani Mikumo. The whole thing had actually been quite a bit of fun. For a convincing trail, they had to come up with a whole backstory, After a bit of consideration, they had settled on Mikomo Akatani being a legally emancipated orphan living in a fictional address in Aichi with a vaguely described quirk called Kismet. The fake identity came with papers proving his birth and the death of his parents, along with a PO box connected to his name. After he walked out with the new ID, he's left with 8,000 yen in his pocket. He uses 70,000 to buy of them. He uses 70,000 of them to buy a prepaid flip phone from a corner store. Then another 700 to buy bubble tea. He ends up needing to use the last 300 because his best pass has expired. There is a general trend in his life. Izuku thinks as he intentionally rides the subway into an active villain fight, that he tends to go towards danger rather than away from it. He supposes that it does make a sort of sense. After all, generally, if you have the initiative, then your enemies will always be on the defensive. The problem being that Izuku has no idea who his enemies were, but his quirk does. Presumably. So once he is at the stop from where the ear-splitting shrieks of metal and insane ramblings are emanating, he steps out from the empty subway car. There isn't any immediate danger where he is, so he sets about finding it. He gets to the entrance of the subway and takes in the street. There was some sort of villain group trying to, from what Izuku can see, simply cause as much property damage as possible. At least 4 of them had already been apprehended. Heroes are zipping around, protecting buildings and civilians. One of them catches Izuku's eye. He's flying around in a cloud of red feathers faster than Izuku can process. If Izuku isn't mistaken, that is Pro Hero Hawks. So that's the guy Izuku is supposed to get to follow him on Twitter. The internet said that he is one of the top young heroes to watch. Apparently, he has been quickly climbing the ranks. Some said he might make it into the top 10 pro heroes within the year. And Izuku needs to be friends on Twitter with him. Why exactly is his life so weird? Who is he kidding? He loves it. His quirk isn't telling him to move, so he leans against one of the pillars and watches the show. The fight is winding down at that point. The villains are being put into quirk suppressing cup. The villains are being put into quirk suppressing cuffs and sent away. Izuku idly wonders what would happen if he were put into a pair of those. Would his quirk just stop? The talk is strange. He has never really been without his quirk's intuition. How well would he even function? Who knows? More than likely, his quirk will just never let him get into a position where it could be a problem. It is as he is considering this train of thought that the building he's in collapses. Well, that was a little dramatic. He's standing in the entrance to the subway, so it's more like the structure that he's standing in front of collapses. Thankfully, though he knows that it wasn't due to luck, none of the chunks of concrete hit him, so he is just left coughing in the wreckage, dirty but unharmed. Then something grabs him and shoots him into the air. Oh shit, mumbles the person that had grabbed him. Izuku looks up and into the eyes of none other than Pro Hero Hawks. Izuku says, looking down at the ground, some 100 or so feet below. Hi! Shit, the hero says, then lands on a building. He starts patting Izuku like he can't believe he is in one piece. I thought that building was empty. Are you okay? How are you okay? Izuku stares for a minute, trying to figure out what his quirk wants exactly. He glances back at the street. The fighting seems to have ended. Well, this is as good a chance as any. That was scary, he settles on saying. No shit, Hawk says, running his hands through his hair. Oh, no, sorry. I thought that building was empty. Kid, I'm sorry. How did you even get... There's something I want. Izuku interrupts. Hawk's head snaps towards Izuku, and he is reminded that this is a proper pro hero. His eyes narrow slightly, and Izuku gets the sense that his wings have shifted into something more dangerous. Follow me on Twitter! Izuku almost shouts. He doesn't need to fake the nervousness. Hawks stares at him. Follow you on Twitter. He repeats slowly. Yeah, that would make me feel so much better, and Hawks let out a groan. You know what? Whatever. He pulls his phone out from his pouch, then pulls it to his face. He clicks something, then looks back up at Izuku. Username? Foresight 2020. Izuku chirps. I'm already following you. Hawks clicks some things, then frowns and tucks away his phone. There, it's done. That make you feel better? Izuku grins and clasps his hands together in response. Hawks rubs his hand over his face and groans. I'm too young to not understand the kids these days. If it makes you feel any better, I don't understand me either. Izuku chirps. It does not, but thank you. Hawks takes his hand away from his face, looking down at the street. Are you ready to get down? You can catch people who are falling from buildings, right? Izuku has a fantastic idea blooming in his mind. Yes? Hawks says carefully, turning to Izuku. Too late! Izuku is already jumping from the lip of the building. Hey, his quirk didn't tell him to stop, so might as well, right? Hawks shouts of surprise and utter confusion follows him down. The feathers do catch him though. Izuku should retroactively make a bucket list just so he can scratch that off it.